Hey guys, it's me Chrissy here. I am back with another video. In today's video, if you ever went through depression and suicidal thoughts and you went through bullying, I hope this video honestly helps you as a teenager, as a child, or even as an adult, because guess what? Adults go through the same thing. Adults go through people bullying them, people bashing them, So it's just like I hope this video definitely brings awareness, and I hope that this video can honestly, reach the right audience where my courage and my bravery can sit here and help others out there who's watching this video. Now, I'm going to be sitting here talking about how I, survived bullying and how I also survived suicidal. Now, I went through bullying, I would say, and depression, I would say about not my whole life, but up to my teenage years at a certain extent. When I was younger, it was honestly worse. And then when I got older, it wasn't as bad, but I was still battling it. So in school, kids is going to be kids, They're going to talk about how you look. They're going to talk about how you dress and all this. You get what I'm saying? But I always got bullied for, like, fun. It was so weird. Like, people bullied me just for fun, Even in a certain grade, I would say probably second grade, I experienced bullying as well from, a girl that I never personally spoke to, who I wasn't even friends with, but for some reason they chose to bully me, And it never really got to me because I always had this strong mindset at a young age. I don't know exactly where I got it from. I feel like I kind of got it from my parents because they didn't raise me to be weak. And at the time when I first started experiencing bullying was when I was very, very young. And I'm talking about in my very first school, literally. So it's just like, don't quote me on the grade. Maybe it wasn't second grade, but I think it was second grade because when I started third grade, I ended up transferring into a different school. Into a different school. So I knew it had to be second grade to, other grades that I started experiencing bullying. And I used to have this girl that would sit here and bully me. She would sit here and bully me for my snacks. She would sit here and say, "Oh, if you don't give me some, I'm gonna sit here and tell the teacher." She would sit here and bully me for my looks, say I'm ugly, say I'm this, say I'm that, But it never really got to me because, like I said, I wasn't raised to be weak. How I personally handled it is by either telling the teacher, telling the parent, or telling even my parents, or I would just sit here and say, at the end of the day, words can't hurt me. If it's not true, why would I be upset about it? You know what I mean? Now, I'm not going to say when I was younger, I was the best looking. I definitely wasn't. You know what I mean? But that never really made me feel insecure as a kid, because as a kid at that time, going through bullying, it was just like, okay, you know what I mean? So I would sit here and handle it by reporting it to a teacher, and the teachers never really did anything. I would report it to, the child's mother, because the child's mother would sit here and go pick her up, and I would always see her mother. So I sat here and I told her mother that her child was sitting here bullying me. And I don't know what the mother did behind the scenes, but I feel like the mother didn't do much because it kept happening. And one time, the girl was like, "Why would you sit here and tell my mother?" And then when I went to respond, she just, turned her head. So I'm just like, so I never thought the mother really did anything to honestly, make sure that her child was stopping the bullying. You know what I mean? Because like I said, after I even brought it up to the mother, nothing changed. I was still being bullied. And then when I reached the third grade into a new school, I'm not going to put what school I went to because I don't want to get, any type of, backlash from it. You never know who's watching your video. But when I went to the third grade, I would say that grade, I won't say was the worst. Now, I made a lot of good friends. I met one friend, who's still my friend up to this day. Me and her have been friends ever since the third grade. And out of all friends that I ever had, she was the only one that was there for me. She was the only one that showed me what a real friend is. You know what I mean? And me and her had our differences, but it was never nothing like serious. But in the third grade, I experienced bullying. I experienced, bullying for my looks. You know what I mean? People would just pick on me just to pick on me, And then it was this group of girls at one point, It was this ringleader. I'm not going to put her name, but I'm just going to call her Maddie. She was the ringleader of the group. And she would just sit here and bully me just for the hell of it, make comments, sit here and talk about my parents and this and that. And like I said, it never affected me because I always had that strong mindset because, like I said, my parents never raised me to be weak. And she would just say how ugly I was, how stupid I was, and da da da, make fun of me for taking the school bus at the time. Like if something is wrong with it, you know what I'm saying? Sit here and say I'm taking a yellow bus, and I just honestly ignored it, and I just kept pushing. Cause I'm like, at the end of the day, you could say whatever, you know what I mean? It's not hurting me. None of this stuff is true besides the school bus. You get what I'm saying? But, it was one time where me and the girls planned on fighting, but, that never happened, of course. You know what I mean? Because I got fed up, I'm just like, okay, enough is enough. Now I'm ready to sit here and fight. But that never happened. You know what I mean? They wanted to fight me, but it never happened. You know what I mean? But, that went on for a long period of time. Like every time they sing to me, they'll make smart remarks, they'll laugh and all this, you know what I mean? This is stupidity. And at one point, I actually did get into a fight at school with this one girl who, I'm not going to put her name, but I'm going to call her Apple. But I got into a fight. My very first fight out of my whole entire lifetime was when I was in probably the 5th grade. And I was in the bathroom. I was calling one of my close friends that, like I said, is still friends with me up to this day. I was calling her from outside the bathroom. This girl walks up and, no, actually she didn't walk up at first, She was like, dang, stop yelling at the bathroom. Mind you, I'm not even yelling loud. You're all the way over there in the bathroom and I'm all the way by the door in the bathroom. You know what I mean? So what I'm doing shouldn't concern you. But it did. But those girls that wanted to sit here and be fast and, prove that they're tough and stuff, that's what escalated this. So she was like, stop yelling out the bathroom. I was like, I'm calling my friend Crystal. And she was like, shut up before I slap you. I said, I dare you. I dare you, shorty. Slap me. At that time, like I said, I'm not scared of nobody. Slap me. She walked her little skinny white self up here. And mind you, she's beautiful and everything. But your attitude is what makes you disgusting and ugly. She walked her little legs up here, And she was like, say I won't. I say you won't. She did slap me. And when I tell you I swung on her, I was whamming on her. Because I'm like, you touch me, it's over. She touched me. Mind you, she had her group of friends there, trying to show off and got her ass whooped. Okay, when I tell you, I don't even know how I ended up scratching her. I just know I was fucking her up. You know what I mean? And she had a whole scratch from here, from here to here, because I guess when I was fighting, somehow my nail ended up scratching her. So it was very noticeable. So she tried to sit here and hit me, and I wilded out and I fucked her up. All her friends watched, everybody was talking about how she got beat up by me. Literally, everybody. And I'm just like, that's so embarrassing. So after that fight, I sat here and I went upstairs. And then, I was in the bathroom on the 3rd or 5th floor. And I was I was inside the bathroom with me and my other 2 friends, and we was just talking about what happened, you know what I mean? She ended up coming up there. So I'm just like, now I'm back on that demon time. And shorty, what up? You know what I mean? So she ended up sitting here saying to her friends, I don't want to go in there. I don't want no issues. You know what I mean? So she ended up backing out. I don't know what they went afterwards, but she ended up backing out, and not coming inside the bathroom. So I, like a smart ass, I said, she could come in here. I'm not going to touch her. And she's like, nah, it's fine, and she went wherever she went with her friends. So that was my very first fight. Now, like I said, I went through bullying a lot of times, and only one time it got physical, and never again. But I even had moments where it would be boys that is bullying me. One time, I was on the bus, and it was this dude. I'm not gonna name anybody's name, but it was this one dude who tried to show out for his friends, of course. You know what I mean? He would sit here and throw things at me, be in my face yelling, One time, and at that time when he started bullying me, I was already overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't want to be in this life no more. I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Because at a certain time, bullying did start to affect me. But I still kept pushing through. So he would sit here. He one time took paper and wiped his ass with it and threw it at me. At that point, I broke down. One of my other friends that used to live in the same building as me, she was just looking and she didn't say anything, and I'm just like, why am I going through this? Like, why? He literally took paper, wiped his ass, and threw it on me. And I'm literally just there crying because I'm just like, I'm over it. You know what I mean? Like, I used to be so strong, and now it's like the bullying started to affect me on some type of level because it's just like, it's every day by different people. You know what I mean? And mind you, it's from people who's just sitting here wanting to pick on you for no reason. People who's wanting to sit here and pick on you just to make it seem like they're big and bad and show out, to their friends. And in reality, you look like an ass. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I went through bullying bad, and the only thing I would say that helped me was remembering who I was. Remembering how strong my parents, including my mom and my dad, had raised me. Telling myself at the end of the day, no matter what a person might say, don't let those words break you down. Because guess what? You know who you are. And if people have to sit here and bully you for no reason or even for a reason, guess what? That's because they're fighting their own demons. That's because they feel insecure about their self if they have to honestly bully you just because of what you wear or how you look. It's those people that feel insecure about themselves. You know what I mean? And I would sit here and say to myself at the end of the day, I'm not going to let nobody take me down. And I kept that promise to myself, But like I said, bullying did at some point start to affect me, I started to become insecure. I'm like, dang, I am ugly, I started to become depressed, And that's when, suicidal thoughts start to come in from a very young age, you know what I mean? Mind you, 10 or 11 is way too young for me to be thinking about suicide, right? But, I went through depression very bad because I started to feel very insecure. I was not confident, I was getting bullied every damn day. But I survived it because, simple fact, I kept telling myself, don't let words hurt you. Don't let these words cut you, Don't sit here and let these people let you bring yourself down. You get what I'm saying? Don't let them bring you down. So it's like, that was the, sorry, I'm checking my phone. So that was the only way I was personally able to sit here and get through bullying. Now, how I survived suicidal from a young age was honestly telling myself, to be honest, I don't want to. The only thing I would be honest with you guys is a couple of reasons as to how I survived suicidal. It was one time where I did try to sit here and harm myself with scissors, you know what I mean? And it was because, growing up, my life was not easy at home. You get what I'm saying? And it was just like, it wasn't easy, Then dealing with bullying at school is just too much. So at one point, I did want to harm myself with scissors, and I tried it, but I didn't get very far. I didn't do it very deep. I didn't do it very hard, because I was scared. My biggest fear was going to hell because I always heard if you commit suicide, you're going to hell. So that was the only fear that kept sitting here. Definitely at the time when I was hearing about what hell is like. Even though nobody really knows what it's like. But, things that you get raised up on is what, I was sitting here being taught. And that was the fear that honestly stopped me, was me not wanting to go to hell. At that time, I would say, not Christian-like, but I was a very strong believer, and I still is. But I was a very strong believer in God, and I was scared to go to hell for anything. Whether that was lying, whether that was cursing. I used to be the one that was always on my knees, no matter what it was. I was always on my knees, sitting here praying for forgiveness for things that wasn't even major, you know what I mean? Things that a kid would do, you know what I mean? So that was one of the reasons why I never really did it, because I was scared of, going to hell. The second reason was I was aware of the pain that it was going to cause my family. At the time, especially my mom. I knew the pain that it was going to cause. And I knew I didn't want to do that to, my mom or my other parent. I knew I didn't want to do that to both of them. You know what I mean? Not even my siblings. Not even myself. You know what I mean? Because I heard, you could sit here and commit suicide. You're still going to have to deal with the same things in the afterworld. So that was another thing that stopped me, And then at one point, I did write a suicidal note that I gave to my parents. And my dad read it. He spoke to me. And then my mom ended up getting the note after he, handled it. And my mom ended up getting the note, and she had spoke to me and stuff and showed me love. But that's not what stopped me. You know what I mean? Because at that time, I was going through so much as a kid, the bullying, the growing up and everything. You know what I mean? So it wasn't easy. You know what I mean? I dealt with a lot of trauma. But those was the couple of things that, gave me the courage to just not do it. And not only that, I didn't want to inflict the pain on to others, because I don't even want to deal with the guilt of knowing that I committed suicide. And now I have to sit here and deal with the guilt in the afterlife that I inflicted on other people. So, yeah. Then it was a point in 2020 where I was doing good for a couple of years before 2020. But then 2020 reached, and oh God, that year was the worst. I lost my teacher and my grandmother right behind each other, literally. My grandmother ended up passing away in March. And then my favorite teacher that, I found comfort in, that I could talk to about things, he ended up passing away in April. So it was this back to back. At that time, I was dealing with depression, because at that time I was still very insecure in myself, then relationship issues wasn't working out, that put a damper on me, you know what I mean? So I was just going through regular, like, high school shit, I guess. And in 2020, at that time when I was going through high school shit, I ended up losing my teacher in Austin. When I tell you my world felt like it was collapsing, I literally sat here and said, I don't understand why I'm still here. I don't understand. It was a time where I left my mom's house and I just went on a walk, but, I sat here and I said, bye, love you, and made it seem like I was okay, but in reality, I wasn't. And I just sat here and said, I knew, because my depression was getting very bad. My suicide was getting very strong, to the point I almost did not make it to another year. 2020 would have been my last year. And I knew it was getting worse, and I sat here and I even told myself, as a teenager, I need to seek some type of help. I remember I went to the train station because I was like, I need to find a church or something. I went to a train station. I just stared at the tracks, and the only thing that was going through my mind was this jump. And mind you, I didn't want to sit here and open up to my family about this, because simple fact, I didn't want them to have to worry about me. So I never opened up about it to my family. They didn't know I was battling it as a teenager as well. And I just looked at the tracks and I was just like, this jump. I was sad. I felt like when I was walking, I felt like nobody seen me. I felt like a black shadow that was walking amongst a lot of living people, but I'm dead already. That's what it felt like. Where you're crying out for help, but nobody around you see you. Nobody around you even hears you. You get what I'm saying? You're invisible. And that's what it honestly felt like. And anyone who's battling depression and suicide now would know that feeling is not great whatsoever. Like, that feeling is not great. And that's what I felt like. I felt numb. I felt dead. I felt invisible. I felt unheard. I felt like I never even existed when I was walking outside, because my mind was elsewhere. I was mentally gone. So it's just like I was looking at the tracks like, this jump, this give up. But I didn't do it. I sat here. I eventually hopped on the train to, just go anywhere. I don't even know where I'm going. I was just going anywhere. Eventually, I found a church that was open, and I went in there, and, I guess the service was out, but I told the priest what I was going through, and, he prayed for me, and then he asked me to come back, but I never came back. For some reason, I just didn't. But how I ended up sitting here surviving depression and suicidal in 2020 as a teenager was the fact that, like I said, I didn't want to inflict the pain. But not only that, I knew that I was going to lose so much in life. And at that time, as a teenager, I haven't fully experienced life. So I knew if I was to end my life right then and there, there's no second chances. There's no coming back from that. You're not going to be able to come back and experience life. So I had to tell myself, if you end your life now, you're going to regret it. And the reason why I'm going to regret it is because I have not experienced life yet. And as a teenager, I had so many goals. So that knowing the fact that if I was to end my life, I'm not going to be able to achieve my goals. I'm not ever going to have my own kids. I'm never going to be able to sit here and do the things I wanted to do as a teenager. I knew that I was blocking everything in my life that was waiting for me to achieve or experience. I knew I was blocking it if I was to sit here and commit suicide. And that was the main reason 2020, no matter how bad it got, that was the only reason why I made it to 2022. That's the only reason why I made it to 2022. Because in 2020, my suicide thoughts, and depression was terrible. Like when I tell you, when I looked in the tracks, it was like so much temptation there just to jump it in everything. Oh God, it was a heavy feeling. And that was that time when I went through it in 2020. That depression and suicidal phase, I was just like, I don't want to ever go back to it. Like, it's traumatizing. Like, literally, depression and suicide is traumatizing. And I, even as an adult now, I'd be scared to ever go through it again because it's very hard. Like, it's like a demon that's on you, that's wanting you to end your life. You know, while sitting here trying to fight with God to sit here and keep me going. You know what I mean? That's what it felt like, you know? God is trying to keep me going, but it's this demon that's weighing heavier than God is. You know what I mean? And it's not a good feeling. You know, it's very scary. It's very traumatizing to go through depression and suicidal. And I would never want to go through that again. But honestly, that's how I survived 2020. And, you know, I kept pushing through. I graduated high school, you know. I was, like I said, I was very down about my teacher and about my grandmother's passing. I was very depressed over that. I felt like now I have no one, you know what I mean? And that's honestly what hit rock bottom for me. And, you know, I even told myself, I know my grandmother don't want me to give up just because I'm losing, you know, certain battles in life. And honestly, me knowing that I am more powerful, you know, I have goals in life and I haven't experienced life yet, that kept me alive. Me sitting here saying, I know my grandmother wouldn't want me to be, you know, dead. And I know that also, I almost said my teacher's name. And I know that my teacher wouldn't want me dead either. You know, they wouldn't want me to just give up easy. Is what also kept me alive. Me thinking about my family and thinking about the pain that I would have caused them is what also kept me alive. Me knowing that I want to eventually have children in life and be successful in life and watch them grow up in life is what kept me alive. And that's how I survived suicidal and depression and bullying. Also, I knowing that at the end of the day who I was and not letting words get to me is another way I survived bullying, depression, and suicidal. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if this is a long video, but I really pray for anyone out there who is going through depression, bullying, and suicidal, no matter if you're a kid, no matter if you're a teenager, no matter if you're an adult. If you're going through this, please, I pray that you don't give up, no matter how hard it hits you. I pray that you don't give up because honestly, giving up the easy way is not worth it. I understand it's hard, but trust me, I went through it and I know you guys could go through it and get through it. You could go through it and get through it. Don't let these obstacles stop you. You're powerful. You're beautiful. Your soul is bright. Don't let nothing sit here and take you out of this world. Don't let it ever win because it almost won over me and I made it and I'm glad that I made it. So I ask anyone out there, just know God got you. You are stronger than what you think you are. Hear me when I say that. You are stronger than what you think you are. Always remember that. And I hope that you guys heal through anything and everything that you're going through in life. Because trust me when I say things will get better. Life is not meant to be smooth sailing at all. We're going to go through things that's tough. So stay strong, you got it. And I'm praying for each and every one of you who's going through suicide, depression, and bullying, and who just want to just give up. I'm praying for you. I know you're strong. I believe in you. So don't ever give up because guess what? We come together as an army and we fight it. We don't let it take us over. We fight. So I really hope this video brings awareness, and I really hope this video help you guys out that is going through depression, suicide, and bullying. Always sit here and seek help. Don't think you could handle it by yourself because I was able to handle it by myself, but it almost took me out, like I said, in 2020. So don't think you can handle it by yourself because eventually it's going to hit hard. Eventually it will. Seek help. Go to ones you know is going to hear you and understand you and be willing to help you. Go to them. Hit up the hotlines. They might be able to listen to you as well. They might put you in a psych ward, so be careful what you say, But the hotlines is there to help you as well. But, don't go through it alone. Just know I believe in you, and I want you to believe in yourself, that you could get through any obstacle. So if this video was helpful, and if this video you could relate to, please feel free to sit here and put in the comment sections, your experience if you want to share it. And let me know how my video was able to help you and encourage you to keep on going and not give up. Also, if you want to reach out to me, feel free. I'd be willing to give you my info privately. If you want to sit here and have someone to talk to, if you're currently going through depression, suicidal, and bullying. But I hope my video honestly helped out those who's in need. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. Bye.